So today's guest is James McCallum, who is a former professional triathlete from South Africa. He now retired from competition, but he's coaching full time with the Laidlow Tribe. While he was racing, he actually won a major victory in the Ironman-certified Turban, and he finished, he crossed the line in 4:01, which is very impressive. And I really enjoyed having a conversation with him as I put myself on the more student perspective, because he's actually also coaching me. So I think it's very valuable, and I hope you like it as well.
Hey Cyril, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. For you?
Yeah, good, thanks. Not too bad.
How is actually the weather in South Africa?
Yeah, the weather's not great, unfortunately. Yeah, we've really started to hit winter properly now. It's been raining most of this week and it's 10 degrees Celsius. So I'm very jealous of you over there in France.
I think I'm a bit jealous what you have right now because it's so warm. Like,
Yeah, I know. I mean, I've got my parents over there at the moment, and they say it's the hottest weather they've experienced ever.
yeah, it's really crazy.
Yeah.
For people who don't know, I'm just from I live in Bordeaux, France, and right now we have a week that is all above 30. And actually, I was remember forget that is it right on the southern part you are in winter, and for some
Yes.
reason it always feels like it's not true, that because it feels so warm in here that it feels so crazy that in this house like this is
Yeah.
it's generally pretty good weather, no?
Yeah, so in summer we have pretty good weather, but then in winter, yeah, I mean in winter it does rain quite a lot,
Okay.
but we don't get any snow or anything like that. I'm always amazed that over in France you actually get snow with the summers you have. You have these extreme heats, far hotter than here, and then you actually get snow in the winter. It's always always quite
Yeah.
crazy to think of it like that.
I mean, I think in Bordeaux there was no snow, but I come from Belgium, and I think no one really envies the climate in Belgium. That's it almost rains always, and then
Yeah.
we have snows, but we have also like 4 or 5 months of pure rain and gray sky. I think
Yeah, that's why it's pretty much the home of cyclocross. Everyone has to learn how to ride in the mud.
do you think it's just they are so used to have this comfort in having bad weather that they get used to do a very boring, a long hour of cycling?
Yeah, yeah. Then things like the Tour de France become easy for them.
Yeah, maybe just before we start, I just wanted to give some context that first, when I met you to see if you would be a good coach or not, for me, I remember the first fact that we had in common is that I really struggle with the swim, and you used to really struggle with the swim. But how
Yeah.
actually was your experience with swimming at first?
So I haven't come from a swimming background. I started triathlon quite late in my life, I suppose, as far as when people wanting to go professional start. I only started when I was 27. And swimming for me was always a big struggle, as I hadn't had any experience in the sports at all. And I quickly learned that swimming is very different from cycling and running, where it's not exactly the harder you go, the faster you go. It's a lot more about technique and learning how to actually move in the water properly. And you see people that have swam from a young age. They just have that natural ability. Well, I mean, I suppose not natural because they swam from a young age, but it's that kind of repetitiveness and habit that they form in the water, where they can just move so naturally and so calmly. And to learn that at an older age is a lot harder. Just also from a mobility point of view. I find if you have swam from a young age, or your shoulder mobility and things like that, you can get your actual catch and pull into a great position. So that for me was a huge learning curve. I did my first triathlon in 2017, and yeah, quite embarrassed to say I didn't even finish the swim. I only swam 200 meters, and then was shouting for help. So
You know,
so that was, yeah,
I actually
an
read that,
interesting.
and I thought it was the best. Sorry to cut you up, but I read that, and I was like, I feel when it's of course, it's your story that it happened to you. So I feel that when it
Yeah.
happens to you, it feels a bit shameful. I don't know how you say in English, but then I feel like for me, for example, when I started to swim, I thought literally I would die in the water as well in the first one.
Yeah.
And it was only 700, 750 meters.
Yes.
Then I think it's such a valuable experience that you came from out of that background. So the first one you didn't even finish, then you still managed to become a pro. So
Yeah.
can you tell me more about from that experience to not being able to swim? And first, I'm sure you're kind of a competitor. So for you to call for help is that you are really, really in a bad place. How did
Yeah, so that look, I mean, I think I went into the actual triathlon very naive. I used to play rugby, and I was, yeah, I mean, I've always been quite a competitive person in terms of wanting to do a sport that pushes me and challenges me. And I had to stop playing rugby, so just due to various different injuries, and I came across this triathlon that was in Cape Town, and I thought it'd be a cool idea to enter it. And I kind of in the training, I thought, oh, well, I mean, I'm pretty fit now. How fit do I have to be to do a triathlon? I don't think it's going to be that hard. Swam a bit in the pool, but not much in open water. So got to the triathlon thinking, okay, I'm actually going to do quite well. Well, that changed pretty quickly within 200 meters of the swim. I just, it is just a completely foreign experience for me. I haven't, had that feeling of being in a wetsuit, getting into the water, and it's colder than you expect. And that all really adds to your natural instinct just to panic. And that immediately happened to me, and I didn't at all foresee that happening. So it was so foreign, and my body just kind of shut down. I wasn't really even in control. And from that experience, it's been a bit of a blessing in disguise, because I know now that can happen, but you've got to just gain control of your basic emotions and your natural instinct to actually panic.
What is it exactly that emotion that you learn to maybe appreciate? Like, how is it now? Like, I'm always trying to grasp, because now I'm still struggling in the water. Like, I still feel very uncomfortable, and I always wonder. Yes. I would love to be in the body of someone that's very good at swimming to see how they feel. And maybe they feel the same as me, but they just interpret it differently. So how was it for you to transition from that first scary experience to now? Yeah,
so I've also had your wish. I would love to feel how it is to be in a guy who's absolutely amazing at swimming. Swimming with a guy like Sam Laidlow, it's actually a bit demoralizing being in the pool with him. But I think it's just understanding that nothing bad is going to happen to you. And all of it is actually being self-inflicted. So, you have to, it's a physical response when you don't have enough oxygen and you've got too much carbon dioxide buildup to have that panicky feeling. So you've just got to appreciate that is what your body's doing. It's not that you're dying or anything like that. And even if it means you rolling on your back in the water in your wetsuit, it floats obviously, so you're not going to sink. So you just turn over onto your back, take a few deep breaths, calm down, and then just carry on. And it's kind of just negating your way through that panicky experience. And after, and the best way to do it is to just keep on swimming. So you enter races, do open water swims that actually do challenge you and put you in that position. That's how you eventually overcome it.
Yeah, so for you, it was more like you, after that experience, did you go back to training and did you at some point feel, okay, I'm really not good at swimming? Maybe it's because that's a question I get from everyone that, okay, if you really don't like swimming, what do you keep on doing it? Because for so many people, it's so easy. Go at the pool. I have a friend that just started triathlon, and he's already better at me than swimming when I did it for more than a year. So how did you deal with that feeling of, okay, maybe it's just not for me? Did you feel more as a growth experience to then improve there, or how did you deal with it?
Yeah, so it has been tricky. I mean, throughout my pro career, it was always a really frustrating thing, because I felt that my bike and run were in a pretty decent place, but with the way that the racing is at the moment, it's like you have to be making a second or first pack swim. I mean, I know there's no drafting in in the sport of triathlon when it comes to longer distances, but still 12 meters, you are still feeling a benefit. If there's a 10-man bike pack, you are still getting some benefit from the drafts. So that, coming out the water and being like the second last bike in T1 is something that you just have to kind of accept and not let it frustrate your race too much. And then just say, okay, well, it's going to be a long day, and this isn't going to dictate how my race is going to go, because it's extremely easy. And it happened to be my first few races where I was just like, oh, the race is done now, and then you have a negative outlook the whole race, and then your race is pretty much done. So it is just about changing that mindset of, just trusting in the process of your bike and your run, and that it is a long day and people are going to get tired, so you can't stress and cause anxiety, which will just only be detrimental to you and make you more tired. So I think it's just that positive mindset shift that did help me quite a lot. And Richard Laidlow was big about that, and that he just, he said, like, it doesn't matter if you lose 2-3 minutes. It is just a long day. And I kind of started to look at it a bit differently.
So was it really, because for people who don't know, like, you are the neighbors of the Laidlow family, basically?
Yes. So I first met Richard back in 2018. I went over there for a training camp, and it was 2 weeks. I took some leave from work and I wanted to do something different. So this was after my horrible experience in the water at my first triathlon. Richard really helped me. And, just at this stage, I wasn't really wanting to go pro or anything. I just was wanting to take on a different challenge. And he really helped me to be able to swim calm and just actually accept with, the ability I've got in the water at the time, and realize that it's a long day in triathlon. It's not something that's won in the swim. And then ever since then, we've, obviously he's been my coach and also mentor. So my parents came over to visit me when I was over there, and it just happened that there was a house for sale next door to them. And they then loved the place, loved France, and decided to buy a holiday house there. And now, that was back in 2019 when they made the purchase, and we've been neighbors since then.
And so in how they helped you, do you think I'm always wondering what benefits athletes? Is it this mental perspective? Because, there's much more likelihood that if you have a sibling that is in a pro athlete, that you become a pro athlete yourself. And do you think it's purely from this mentality of, okay, you have this struggle, we can tackle it from a pragmatic perspective? Or do you think there's also another aspect of maybe that is more discouraging, actually, when you're not in this sphere? Because it can feel, okay, they grew from a young age, or with a parent that fed them well, told them about training, maybe genetics and so on. Those are actually all my fears that make me think, okay, maybe it's not for me. So do you think that it's actually more about taking it from a pragmatic perspective and tackling it than this?
I think that, a lot of it is mentally how you approach something that doesn't come naturally to you. And it is extremely easy to just say, oh, well, I'm not designed to swimming. I'm not good at swimming. And that's not helping the cause. That's just making it worse. I do believe people are physically more able to swim, from a, as you said, genetic or physical attribute point of view. But then again, they then may be struggling with the running. It's no one starts, or it's extremely rare. If you start triathlon and you all of a sudden just get all three and you are very good at all three. I don't know anyone that has just started the sport like that. So everyone's dealing with their own struggles. And I think that that's also the mental understanding one needs to have, is that, yes, one might be weak at the swim, but then you're a stronger runner, and someone's thinking, geez, I wish I could run like him. So it's kind of just also putting stuff into perspective.
Yeah. And also that I feel I try to shift, from that feeling when I do intervals in the run. And it's actually so interesting that you get to see my trainings, and because you are my coach, you get to see my and so on about it. But in the run, I tend to go too fast, and I'm not afraid of feeling that deep hurt maybe with the run. And I wish I could have that same feeling in the swim and not feel so, because I know when I swim, I maybe feel like 60%, like 20% less than in the run, this negative feeling of
Yes.
body strain and so on. I'm really trying to shape that feeling of in the run where I'm able to push to in the swim.
Yeah.
And exactly like you said, I have some experience from people that start triathlon, and they're always, to me, the run is the most daunting. It's a lot of shocks. My body is in pain and so on.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm never am afraid of running. Worst case, it's I do a bad run, but I don't feel so much fear about running.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely a big confidence thing in the water, because also it's not, if you're not a confident and, you know, a well-established swimmer, it isn't nice to feel tired in the water. It's, you know, you don't want to get that feeling in open water where you're feeling tired and feeling exhausted.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, on obviously on land, you can just stand up and take a breather, you know, whereas in the water, if one isn't used to feeling that feeling in that environment, then the immediate thing is again to panic. So you're constantly almost holding yourself back because you don't want that feeling. And it's actually, the more you put yourself in those positions, the easier it gets, and the more your brain starts to realize, okay, well, this isn't that bad. You know, I can swim this hard, or if I get tired, I'll just go onto my back. You know, and it's just about building up that confidence in the water.
Right. It's so interesting because, you know, I come from more neuroscience psychology backgrounds, and this, what you describe is exactly what anxiety, like panic attack are. That you feel you're going to die, and it's a truth. I used to have that, for example, at some point with social anxiety. Actually so fun, and now I do podcasts and
Jesus. So I mean, now you putting yourself in that position and overcoming it.
I mean, I'm still very stressed about it, but back in the days, I almost couldn't go through going in auditorium, or if I had to go to an exam, I was in, you know, there was 400 people, and my main fear was that the exam was just, I don't know if I'm going to make a weird noise, or if I'm going to be, when I stand, sometimes I was just so scared of standing in the middle of the crowd that I was waiting for everyone to leave to then stand in a more chill way. Or even when I was graduating and I have to go on the stage, and to me, it's scary. Like, I don't want to do this. So I feel that's what to me is one of the main learning that I have through to sport, is that you have all those fears that can manifest in whatever ways. And then it's always the same to me, that the more you do them in a way that, okay, worst case, I'm not going to die. Like, this is also a very important factor to know that you're not going to die. Because if you have real issues, you know, with some bodily symptoms, and you're not sure you're going to die, when you have anxiety attacks, you might have palpitations, which I had. Then you always have a 10% likelihood that these are a real cause that you need. Even if it's unlikely, you still want to make sure. I feel once this is out of the way, you can finally tackle all those anxieties. And so, he says it's crazy how it's exactly what anxiety attacks are.
I mean, it's quite incredible how the mind can actually sabotage your body, you know, and give you these irrational things, and make you feel out of control of your own body. And as you said, it's about just overcoming that and feeling comfortable with the environment you're in.
And so actually, just to understand, how did you become so good at running and cycling? Like, it's a bit different topic, but I always have these things when I look at pros. All their times in all disciplines feel so insane, and I'm always wondering how, like, from a rugby background, when you started these other disciplines, were you just very good at it at the start?
I mean, as I said, it's been quite an unconventional journey for me. I was very into rugby. I didn't do any athletics at school. I just wanted to play rugby. And I also probably weighed back then 95 kilograms, between 95 and 100. So for me, you know, running and endurance sports was never a big thing. I just wanted to be fit enough to play rugby and to play well. And then after that, I obviously had these concussions and injuries where I just couldn't carry on playing. And then I got into a bit of mountain biking, enjoyed that. And I mean, the running side kind of just came with the sport. I mean, I then realized I wasn't half bad at it, and obviously dropped dropped quite a lot of weight, and I was doing all the running and cycling, and as my kind of fitness improved, my times improved, and I got really excited about it. And then I was running pretty decently within 5 years.
So how was your progression? Like when you started, what were your paces? Maybe to get an idea of where you started.
So when I started, funny enough, when I started, I could run a sub 20-minute 5K.
Which took me years to do.
Yeah, which I was quite surprised at, because at that stage I was pretty heavy, and I think that maybe gave me a bit of an excitement, and seeing that I can actually run a bit. And then the paces, as anything, when you start to see progress, you start to get excited and you start to get more invested in the sport, and it is kind of a natural progression then. So I mean, maybe I had a kind of a dormant ability to be able to run, that I just didn't know about until I was 27. But then I kind of just never looked back and carried on improving.
Yeah, and so maybe when you look at, I really love that you have my trainings and what I do, and you can have a look at it. And so from your perspective, because I try to relate also with some people that feel like me, they try their best to improve and then they feel so slow compared to other people. From what you see about me, how do you feel that, why is it explained? Is it more that I'm probably made for other types of sports, but I still choose to do that and I want to improve? Or like, how do you explain these differences? And do you really see a difference that I have to work on that you weren't seeing in you? Or is it a different kind of difference?
So I think everyone is different. It's hard to. Well, and that's the beautiful thing about the sport of triathlon, is that there's no one size fits all kind of method, and that's what I really like about it in the coaching side. That every person is different, and every person is a new challenge. Also, everyone's goals look different for everyone. When it comes to what I feel people tend to do when they run, is they tend to run too hard all the time. And you can see now with the training we're doing, there are quite a few easy runs as well. There's longer, easy runs, focusing more on heart rate, and that in time teaches the body to be more economical over time. And then you are able to run faster for longer, and you're able to actually get in your recovery. Whereas, if you're going out and running sessions hard every single time, you only teach your body one way, and that's to go into the high anaerobic zone. Plus, then you aren't going to recover from that training session in time to absorb the fitness before you do the next one. So, no, I mean, I absolutely don't think that triathlon's not for you. I think you got some really good potential, and I mean, it's these things just take time. It doesn't happen overnight, and that's also something that athletes have to understand, is that it's a long process. Guys that are at the top of the sport now, like a guy like Sam Laidlow, he honestly has been doing this since he was 4 years old, and I'm not joking. That is what he has been doing. I mean, I know for his. Yeah, I mean, he's been swimming. Yeah, I mean, he's done thousands of kilometers, and 10,000 hours in each discipline. So these things take time. And if it is easy, everyone would do it.
Yeah. I actually like that there is all these. There is one part that is the only thing, because you see, I feel I play a bit of chess, and then now you feel like not at a competitive level at all, but you always have those stories that discourage you from doing it, as if. Okay, now all those people start playing chess at 4. If you start later, you can't do it. But I really like about your story that you can start later. Of course, you probably have some inclinations about it, but you still have to put the work in. And if you're somewhat fit, I think you have some inclination towards either quicker distance. I used to play football. I don't know.
Okay.
Do you say football or soccer in South Africa?
We say soccer and football. I mean, I don't think we find no yet. Our football team isn't very good, so I can't really say it too much.
But the World Cup was crazy, though. With the
World Cup was amazing. That was. I think we actually beat France, which I can't believe. But,
yeah.
Yeah, but But I mean, I remember the manager left, and there's a whole problem with the French team that.
Yeah. I'm from Belgium, so I didn't follow France.
Oh, yeah, yes, of course, yeah.
But I remember that was crazy with the Vuvuzela, and the atmosphere there was just one of a kind.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's really amazing.
So, I mean, there is this daunting, and then I also feel there is all those, like you said, for example, when I talk to myself, I'm always, okay, I was more made for sprints. When I was a kid, I was always good at sprints. So,
Yeah,
school, if I was gym, a 100-meter test, I know I would win all those
yeah,
things. And then if we had to do 30 cycles, I don't know how you say it, 30 times the track, then I would
yes,
struggle more with it. And then now I'm trying to see, like, because there's a side of me that wants to do, when you have friends that start triathlon, always it's, okay, you start with a smaller one, then they increase in distances,
yeah,
and they are pretty good at it. And me, I'm always skeptical, as in, I know I'm better at smaller distances, but I still have this challenge side that wants to do bigger. But I also have this competitive side that wants to perform in smaller distances. So I never know how to deal with this feeling in my head of maybe you're just not good at endurance. And like you said, I don't know. I never know if you mean it because you're a coach. So when you tell me, oh, you've definitely got potential, even I don't know if it's a fear of me that tells me, yeah, he says that he's a coach, or I don't know.
No, I mean, I'm pretty straightforward when it comes to those kinds of things. I mean, if the athlete comes to me and says, "Look, James, I want to go and race my first Ironman, and I want to do it in some I don't know, ludicrous time that's really, really fast." I'll say, look, I mean, you can aim for that in the long term, but let's first, maybe aim at completing the Ironman.
Yeah.
And just getting that distance in, and then as the training goes on, you also have a way better idea of how the guy or girl is actually going to perform. But also, how motivated they are, because a lot of people will say at the beginning they want to do this, but then when the work starts to get pretty hard with the training, all of a sudden it's like, oh, I don't know about this goal anymore. And that is the thing, it's like people do like to say stuff, but then they don't really like to do. And yeah,
They like how it sounds.
Yeah, I mean, they like the end results, but then the in between that isn't really that nice getting there. They don't like to do that.
Yeah, it really reminds me of the previous conversation I had with Scott Frey, that from his perspective, the athletes he sees aren't going to really make it at a super high level if they achieve much the end results. And for him, it's more this chasing of the. Yeah, like it sounds very corny, but the journey you have through and what you learn about yourself. And so for you, was it also really that, like this? Because it sounds like so much, corny, that you have to learn your why, and that's only how you're going to make it at a high level. But did you experience that really crisis of your why and not sure you want to do that anymore? And did you have to really shape that?
Yeah, I think, and I mean, I only started to learn this at a later stage in the sport, but the best thing to do is basically have blinkers on, and to not look at anyone else, and you just focus on yourself. Because it's very easy to get carried away with things like social media. You see so-and-so, well, I mean, Strava is one of the worst. You see so-and-so did this insane workout. Yeah, and his heart rate was this, and then you start thinking, oh my word, I can't do that. Or like, I'm not training like that. And then that's when that self-doubt starts to manifest in your head. And the best thing to do is just to focus on your goal, what you want to achieve, and what's making you happy in the journey. Because ultimately that's what it's all about, and my whole thing was, I mean, as I said, I started to look at it more like this later on, but it was just to be happy with your race, kind of no matter what the result. If you can walk away from the race saying, I gave that 107%, and that was the best I could do on the day, you can't ask for anything more than that. So, you've also got to just control your controllables, things like getting to the race fit, but kind of whatever happens after that, it's out of your control. If it's a flat tire, if you drop a bottle of nutrition, you can't control that. So the biggest thing is just being able to control your controllables in the lead up and not focus on anyone else but your own goals.
Yeah, and I think it's quite different from the training. like in the race, I feel okay. Now it's a bit like an exam. Now all the work is done. I do the exam. Whatever happens, happens.
Yeah.
What kind of different, like, is it a different mentality you have while training? Also with longer distances, it's many more hours. So how do you
Yeah.
deal with those? Like, what were maybe your, if I can talk about demons that were making you want to quit or to pursue in the training specifically?
Yeah, so the biggest demon I had was definitely the swimming. It was, yeah, it was demoralizing, if you swimming, I don't know, 2100s or whatever, and you're doing them for time, and you know what other guys are swimming those hundreds in, but your times aren't within 10 seconds of their 100. Then you do start to have that whole kind of cycle of doubt and, oh my word, but I'm going to be nowhere on the swim. And that is where you've literally just got to focus on what you're doing and not what anyone else is doing. That's kind of what I started to do towards more the end, I would say, of my career. And that definitely helped a lot, because actually when you get to race day, some people might not swim how they've been swimming in the pool. It is very different to swimming in open water, and then the times aren't that different. So, we tend to focus a lot on what's negative about us, and actually not what is positive and what we should be celebrating in the journey. It's what I always think of is, it's easy to have one big goal, but then we lose sight of the short, like great achievements we've had in the lead up to that goal. So what I try to do is if I had a good bike session, I'll be like, cheapers, James, that was a really good bike session. That's a win today.
Yeah.
And as soon as you start giving yourself little incremental kind of pat on the backs, it really does help your enjoyment of the whole sport, and eases that negative mentality.
And did that came more from yourself, like this reward system that, okay, I really didn't want to do this session, I still did it, or did it came more from external reward of, okay, now I can see I do a competition and I feel pretty competitive. My result was that more motivating, or was that more that inner journey of self-reward pattern?
Yeah, it is a bit of both. Because I think it comes with, if you're doing one well, the other should follow. So with the self-rewarding, it was also the feeling of knowing, okay, these are competitive power numbers. This is a competitive run split. And, that then does kind of manifest into more self-belief, which then in turn makes you perform better. So I'd say it was a bit of both, kind of that drove me towards a more positive outlook on certainly on the bike and run.
Yeah, and how did you quantify? Like, did you quantify all of those? Like, did you have your first performance, and were you really excited to see? Okay, next time I perform, am I aiming to improve all those times? Or because I feel sometimes I lack of having all of those processes documented, so I can tell, okay, now I'm really better. Then I feel I tend to over glorify my previous selves as if, oh shit, I wasn't even trained and I wasn't that bad. I'm not even sure I can do better now with training. And I feel this process of over glorifying. But if I would have it's maybe more documented, I would feel more, shit, I'm actually improving the one thing.
Yeah. So I think it's a very important thing to, be able to look back on your training and to say, okay, well, look where I started and look where I am now. And not a lot of people actually do, think of doing that. They don't really give themselves that credit. And what a good way to do that is to have a session that, that is maybe 3 by, I don't know, or no, maybe 5 by 8 minutes at a certain threshold. And then you do that once every 3-4 weeks. And then you can see how you've improved on that specific session over that 4-week period. And you can obviously monitor that with the heart rate and the power. And that just also gives you some validation as to, yes, I am improving. I'm feeling a lot better than I did 3 weeks ago. Also a good way of doing it is, if you went for a run with some friends or a group, and you feeling fitter and better than you were, kind of a month ago, it does also give you that huge boost in confidence. Because if you're training alone day in, day out, you start to just overthink things. It gets in your own head. It's like, cheapers, what am I improving? You starting to analyze every little thing. And yeah, I think it's important to also add in some sort of, essentially competitive group training, or doing a warm-up race, kind of, that's a C race. It's not something that you're really worried about, but you can then see the progress in the race.
Yeah. So at some point you started to train in did you start alone and then you started to join a group?
Yeah, so I trained a lot alone, to be honest. And it definitely had its negative side effects. I just didn't have many people to train with here in South Africa, who were racing professionally. A couple of the other professional triathletes lived a bit further away from me, and the schedules didn't really line up. And then when I went over to France and I trained with Richard and Sam and Arthur, that was really great. Like, I got into a good routine. It was everyone pushing each other, but also like-minded, and wanting to achieve goals. Everyone had their own goals. I wasn't winning the Ironman World Championship. Sam was. Like, Archie had also had won Ironman, and had won quite a few races, and so it was great just being in that environment, just having everyone like-minded, training towards their own goals, and not really. No one really minds if you're running faster than them that day. Everyone's just wanting to improve in their own way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's such a huge difference, that you already have to fight so much against yourself to train those hours. And almost everything that you get from, at least what I get from other people, is more doubts also, like adding doubts about what I do and trying to give me comfort about, and you really don't have to do that much. Why do you do that if you don't like? So that's why that's the first time I take a coach, because I think that's so crucial to have someone that looks at it pragmatically, see where you are, and is more in that pragmatic side of man, I know what it is.
I thought of having a coach. It's extremely helpful in terms of you having there's someone looking at it from an objective perspective, and it's not you looking at it from a subjective perspective. So because it's your training, you become emotionally involved almost in what you think is good, and okay, should I be doing this? And it's very easy if someone's not putting in the plan, to say, okay, no, I actually don't feel like swimming today. I'm going to cycle instead. And
that's the swim.
And then you kind of put stuff off, and it's, and you're not in that routine. And then that's also when that nervousness and doubt does start to creep in about, I think it's just the isolation from, not having an external perspective. And that's where I think having a coach can really help with that, because there is someone looking at it, from an overlooking perspective, and, not very much emotionally involved with, the feelings you're having during your training, in your own head. So I think it's really, certainly for me, it helped me tremendously when I was training alone, to know that there's someone else overlooking and has my best interests in terms of how they think I should be improving, or what's best for me in terms of a training session.
Yeah, but you had that internal motivation of this. I don't see it in everyone. I think we all have it in our own sectors. But you had it internal motivation of, okay, like, I really want to be good at it. That's what makes me. I'm almost excited to do this training. I sort of have that thought, like, I have Strava, but I never look at. I don't really care about what people do, because I always know they train in a different way than me, and it doesn't bother me if I see zone 2, 4 minutes per kilometer, mile, 180 heart rates. Now it doesn't bother me anymore. I almost enjoy this. Okay, I think through this learning and through this information I got, that I think to improve, it's better to do that. And I think that craving to improve is not that, especially in sport, is that what everyone wants to do, which is totally fine. But so you had that initial feeling of, I really want to be good at it.
Yeah, I think it did. It developed into that. when I started initially, I was looking for a new challenge. It wasn't something that I thought was going to, escalate to kind of where it did. But as I said, it's like whenever something's going well and it's positive, and you're seeing improvements and you feeling better, then that natural kind of inclination is to want to improve more. Then you feeling good. You like people are saying, oh wow, you're doing so well. Then you almost want that more and more. So, um, it then did become, to see how far I could take it. And I mean, I was extremely motivated, from a personal goal perspective into what I wanted to try get out of the sport. And yeah, which definitely, did help me improve, I suppose, a bit quicker than usual.
I'm always wondering, like, because some people just progress quicker, and I'm always wondering. I feel my inner, I only have curse words to say that, but my inner bitch is probably like,
Yeah.
man, you can't, you just genetically, you're not that good at endurance. Genetically, you are more made for sprinting. Then, for example, I have a little, I don't know, incubated, like my plexus is a bit inward, but
Okay. And
it's not even
like an indentation.
yeah, but it's not even clinically significant. So then I use all of these factors to, I think, tell me, I mean, look, for example, when you have all those spaces, and I have a friend that does a half marathon in like with a 368 minute per kilometer pace.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, like, I'm never going to be competitive in any way. And so how do you think you get to progress that much quicker than other people? Are you just holistically more? I feel it's so holistic about nutrition, your social environment, where you train. Did you feel you kind of got that, or was it more difficult for you?
Yeah, I think as I said before, I don't think there's a one size that fits all, in terms of how people, how people progress and how one kind of should be progressing. Each goal is definitely, and it should be different for everyone. It comes down to factors like how much time one has to train, whether people have access to the right equipment, to the right nutrition, because someone who's working a full-time job and has to be at the office from 8 to 5, sometimes working later nights, it's just unfortunate that they are not going to improve as fast as someone who's pretty flexible, can, get the rest and recovery in and get all their training sessions done. It does come down to, certain factors. And yes, I mean, at the end of the day, the people are sometimes more physically gifted than others, but I don't believe, unless it's a drastic disability or something, that it should be an excuse in terms of, you setting goals or what goals you want to achieve from a personal perspective. Because at the end of the day, most people in the world doing triathlon are not doing it professionally, and it is purely like an internal thing that you want to achieve. And I think that that's what people forget with chasing results, is that you should be wanting to just achieve what you want to achieve in your own way, no matter what that result looks like. And that often when you give into that, then the results start to come.
Yeah, and that's why I feel that's what can give you a competitive edge. That's like exactly what I was saying before. Not everyone wants to become competitive at sports, and triathlon is already so selective to get to do triathlon. Like I was doing more running. Then randomly, I met someone that was doing triathlon in 2 weeks, and I was like, okay, I'll just try it. Felt I was going to die in the water, but I still have this competitive, feeling of, to me, it's very important, whatever the reason is. And already it's the same for a business. Like every time you have a new steps that requires, doing some work or learning a new process. No, I see it more as anytime you learn that, you distinguish yourself from other person that doesn't want to do it. It's not that you're better, just you have different implications in life that you want to accomplish. And I think like that to me is very reassuring to feel more that I know I really want to do that. And so I'm very excited about training. Not that I'm going to love the training that I still have to do today in the heat, but like I still enjoy that. The boldest way is this Mike Tyson saying, okay, after I love to run when everyone is sleeping because then I feel I get a competitive edge. And I think, okay, that's the extreme, but I love this feeling of, when I started especially me as an amateur, you start at the line. Almost no one wants to be competitive. Maybe the 30 first people, but
Yeah.
it's me that feeling of, okay, I'm still this time, like I'm not going to be the best, but I know in the training, I want to keep that feeling with me. And
Yeah.
I think it's just natural inclination, which is way more reassuring that when you have natural inclinations mentally, then genetically, okay, unless, as you said, you have a very big disability, if you have a very big advantage, you'll probably notice at some point. But if you have a very, like, I know I have that personally, like a very big inclination to try to perform and to improve and to put everything I can. But I know I'm not extremely gifted at endurance, for example. But it's reassuring to me, like what you say about, okay, this is maybe more important unless you have a bad genetic disease or anything.
Yeah, but and I think that's also where having a coach that does help a lot is that they can give you a realistic outlook as to what goals one kind of should be looking at. But then again, the coach isn't the be all and end all. Like if you have a coach that says to you, "Oh no, I don't believe you can do this." Like I'm really not a big fan of someone being told they can't do that because like when I started, there's no way. I mean, Richard was definitely not thinking I was going to become a pro. I remember I said to him, "Yeah, Rich, I want to go sub 5 hours." He was like, "Yo, I don't know. We can maybe look at that, um, and he didn't ever say that's not going to happen, but he was also realistic about it. And I think just him being quite positive about it and not completely writing off kind of my ambitious goals at the time did definitely help me. Because then I mean, if someone had said to me, "No, don't even think of doing that," I don't know if I would have tried.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a, I feel it's really what's the difference between the people that are very, at the highest level. They get this sense of, okay, like it's hard, but I can do it. And I even saw studies like, that were saying that the athletes that perform the best are not the one that say, okay, I'm going to rally it. I'm going to be so good, self-confidence and so on. But they are more the one that were saying, okay, it's going to be really hard, but I'll do my best and
Yeah,
but it's going to be really hard. And then I feel it emphasizes the journey instead of it is over glorifying this goal of I'm going to perform being so good. Because then I feel when you obviously feel bad in training, in race, more in racing, more in the water for us.
yeah.
But you got to have that, okay, but it's just meant to be hard. But I know exactly, yeah, actually, what was exactly did you get these moments where you had to define a precise, why am I doing this thing? And what was it for you?
Yeah, I think there was many times going to the pool on a winter's day, here with the pouring rain, going alone on a Sunday after a long run or something, thinking, why am I doing this? Like, what is, the goals? What is the purpose? And that's when you kind of have to start to just look within, like look insular and be, okay, well, this is why I'm doing it. This is what I want to achieve. I've got a great team behind me. And at the end of the day, I am doing this by choice. I'm actually loving it. And today is hard, but tomorrow is going to be a new day, and I'm going to feel better that I've done the session. And then also not looking at the complete bigger picture. You want to just be focusing on getting that day done, rather than looking at the whole week of next week of training and long hours. Just focus on getting that session done. That's kind of your race for the day, if that makes sense.
It totally makes sense to me. And it was like one of my first existential crises was about like death, long-term, universal goals and so on. And I feel that's when you take a wrong framework of, okay, if I take life as in 100 years, nothing really matters, nothing makes sense. I'm going to die anyway. And then you're very discouraged about anything. But when you start taking, okay, and I have this Kung Fu Panda saying in my head of like the past doesn't exist, the future is not there yet, but the present is there. So that's why it's called the present. Like it's a game. That's the only reference I have. But I generally feel in order to improve, it's way more satisfying that to have a smaller perspective window of, okay, maybe I have this next race, maybe 1 year is fine. Then I said to train about it and so on. But anytime I feel I start to take too long, perspective window, then I get anxious or I get anxious
Yeah.
or depressed. Whereas the smaller perspective, okay, I just try
Yeah.
to be it better than yesterday, and I'm excited to do that.
Yeah, our brains aren't almost designed to, be able to take on that vast amount of information. Almost just goes into overload, and you start to then get that panicky feeling when you're thinking like universes and the whole existential of what happens afterwards, and that's why it's we can't comprehend it, and it's also then in a lot smaller scale. It's like you can't comprehend. I mean, if someone said to me, look, you're going to train to become a professional, but it's going to be extremely hard, like every day for pretty much, 4 years. I don't think I would have signed up, because our brain would be like, no, that's not going to happen. So it's, if you can just take everything in bite-sized chunks, and it's the same way to approach a race and triathlon, you want to take the swim as the swim, the bike is the bike and the run is the run. You don't want to be like looking at the whole day and realizing how long it's going to be.
Yeah, especially the longer the distance, I feel or actually when the distance is short, you have this feeling because you push so hard that your heart body is more, I just want to quit, like it's too painful. So you have these protective mechanisms of survival of I'm damaging my body, so I should stop before I actually damage my body, which actually happens before you damage your body. So your brain wants to stop way before. But I feel in endurance is more this long, why am I even doing this? It's so long.
A lot of times you think.
I actually feel it's almost a forced meditation when especially the bike. That's why sometimes I on purpose do it indoor, in this. I don't have a home trainer, so I do it at the gym, and there's always no one at the endurance section. So I'm alone. I have nothing. I try to not put music sometimes to get purely off.
That's kind.
I don't manage most of the time, but then I get this feeling of, okay, I really don't want to do it, but I'm training this feeling that I have so many times in the back of, I don't want to, let's improve on that. And maybe it will translate in other areas of my life. And I actually was wondering if for you, like at some point when I was training, I think too much before having a coach, I would feel tired most of the time. Then I would, any other task I had to do, I was like, no, there's no way. This is how you feel as a very healthy person. That's how you should feel in life. But how do you actually feel when you get pretty healthy and you still feel tired from the exercise most of the time? Or do you still get this, okay, I'm feeling really good?
Yeah, I think you have ups and downs. But I think it's about finding that balance between overtraining and undertraining and being just on the mark, and what a big thing is actually taking on nutrition during the sessions and after the sessions. That was a big game changer for me, which Richard Laidlow, when I was over there, he really emphasized, taking on the right amount of carbs for a bike session or for a run or swim, and that then enables you to recover quicker after the session, and then just being able to get adequate rest afterwards. So I mean, there were definitely stages where I was, feeling extremely exhausted, and maybe I was overtraining with the previous coach I had. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, it's as soon as you also start to look at things like your heart rate, you monitor that very closely, that you are in the right zones and you're not pushing it too much. And then that enables you to listen to your body also, because if your heart rate's high, it's high for a reason, and then you can just slow the pace down. And that's often, people don't want to do that because you're going slower, but in the long term, it's so beneficial because then you can train more going forward.
Yeah, I've recently actually heard that, I think it's in jiu-jitsu or mixed martial arts, that a professional coach was saying, okay, in America, they tend to do these very high intensity workouts, maybe 3 or 4 times a week. Then they go super hard for 2 hours. But in Russia or other countries that are really good at MMA, they tend to do sessions every day, but they go way less hard. Then at the end of the year, they have like 100 sessions more. And I feel like in training, that's why now I'm almost happy to see when that's my like a guilty pleasure when you see on Strava that people go super hard. Then it's enjoyable, and I love the sessions the most. But I know those are the hardest when you need to keep a low, steady pace. Then you get passed by everyone, especially in the swimming pool. You get passed
Yeah.
the grandma that's like passing you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all
Yeah.
about ego.
Yeah. I mean, there's certainly a time to go hard, and then there's a time to go easy, and it's just about balancing, that within your training. So when it's a hard training session, your body needs to be ready for it to be a hard training session. That's why you have the easy sessions. So it's about just applying the right stimulus kind of at the right time within that training block.
Yeah, and how did you actually learn about nutrition? Because to me, it was a big factor. And it always, sometimes there is so much that it feels about mystical that all those things, yeah, they matter, but to me, maybe they don't matter that much. And you have this sort of feelings that, oh, I could do that a bit better, but it's okay. I'm not doing that bad. How do you, because there is so much different information and like everything in this country, then you start to hear, oh, maybe you should do intermittent fasting. Maybe you should eat a lot. How do you sort of make sense of all this data?
So I feel that you have to find what works best for you, because some things, everyone's body is different, and some things do work better for other people. So that's pretty much just through trial and error. In the training sessions that you say, okay, today I'm going to try to take on 90 grams of carbs for my bike ride per hour. And then if you realize, okay, after 2 weeks of you may be trying to train your gut to do that, it's working well, then you can carry on with that. If it's not, then it's like, okay, well, no, let's maybe just lessen the carbs, or maybe change, the gels or carb mix that you're using. And and unfortunately, I feel it's only trial and error that can really make you understand how your body takes on fuel, and also the training of your gut, and seeing how much you can take on. Because if I went now and tried to take on what I was taking on when I was racing professionally, I would feel absolutely ill, in a bike session. So it is also just about getting to know, but then also training it within your training.
Yeah, and do you back that up with data, and so fascinating that I also heard during the documentary that I always mention about Eliud Kipchoge that one of his actually key abilities to perform that well is how much calories he's able to intake during races.
Yeah.
Which I never even perceived as a real factor. And how do you actually, because this trial of error, I feel maybe at lower level, it's so hard to quantify. So did you get a system or was it purely based on your feeling of, okay, if I take that more in, I feel better?
Yeah, so it did work with me, where the more I took in, the better I would feel. Also, the higher level of output that you're putting out does require you to put more fuel in. So for like a 70.3, if you're two hours on the bike, you're wanting to get quite a lot of fuel in for your run also. And because the effort will be high, that those carbohydrate needs are pretty big. And what did change for me a lot was when I was fueling then also after the sessions pretty well. So it wasn't just in the hard sessions, I also fuel well in the easy sessions, which then was basically me recovering from the hard session the day before also. And it was just being very mindful of how much you're taking in each session or each day. And then over time, you do start to realize what works for you, also what products work for you. And that's the other snag with triathlon, is all the nutrition is pretty expensive, with the gels and stuff. So, you have to also be, if one's racing as an amateur, you have to be reasonable in terms of like, okay, well, I can't go and fuel every session with Morton because it's going to cost me, I don't know, flipping €1,000 a month or something. So yeah, I mean, I would say with your key sessions, with your longer sessions, then that's when you're wanting to do a bit of race testing with how much fuel you can take in.
Yeah, and so as a general rule, is it really just, okay, try to take carbs before, maybe sugary isotonic during, and more protein dense after, like as a general rule?
Yeah, so before, you just wanting to have, oats is always a good go-to if you're riding in the morning or doing a run. I used to just before a long ride have some oats, and then during the ride I would have a sodium mix, a sodium drink, and then also my Morton gels and carb mix, and then I would just measure it out into the bottles, so I knew how much carbs I was taking on per hour. And then post ride, it's it's good to have a bit of protein, and then also back that up with some carbs as well. And then preferably just put the feet up for the rest of the day.
What does that mean? Exactly.
Just chill.
Okay. I'm not English, so I have to get those. But chilling, when you have other obligations, like because I know I really struggle with that feeling of like training is so important, the racing aspect and so on. But then when I want to do some other things, then I struggle with that feeling of, should I really be feeling tired, or is it more that I'm not doing things correctly?
Yeah, it's a balance also, with being able to attend to your other obligations and also fill in the training. There's, at the end of the day, if one's not racing professionally, it's still very important to have that balance of social life and family, because that is also what keeps things fun. You don't want to just to be sacrificing things you don't need to because you want to, obviously it's good to execute your run well in the morning, but if you've got an important family or social event on that evening, one can also move around the training program to suit that. Because, if you start to miss all those things that also make you happy other than training, then it does start to, not make you really a balanced and happy person in life.
Yeah, it's really that holistic perspective, and it's so many hours, especially the longer the distance. It is so many hours a day if you don't manage to give some sort of honest. Like holistically, I feel it's impossible to go training if you feel bad. Yeah, and that's why I really connect with those. You need a deeper meaning of why you're doing it that makes you happy, that makes you happy to share with your partner if you have one, or anything. Otherwise, it's just way too much hours. And did you actually manage to find a sort of, I know some insight about why you maybe turn more into coaching, but how was it for you? Like when you were a professional, was it more difficult for you to manage those?
I've always been quite a social person, and when I was at university, I was, as I said, I was playing rugby, and I was I really enjoyed having a lot of beers and going out and partying and
the buffalo.
and I could get away with it then. At varsity it's exciting and fun. So my group of friends is also very social, and when I started doing triathlon, it was a big shift in my life. Like I had to say, okay, I'm going home now at like 8 o'clock. I have to get up for an early bike session, and thankfully I had very supportive friends and family, and everyone kind of understood what I was trying to do. But it was definitely a hard thing for me to get right, and it was trial and error. It took a few sessions of me feeling terribly hungover to never do that again. And you kind of learn on the way what works best. Kind of if I have a long ride to do, then I would say to my wife, look, well, I have to do this now this morning, but then she would also organize maybe something with her friends in the morning, and we got into a very good routine of, just understanding the balance that we have to walk. But then I'll also be, very understanding if we had to go to like a lunch after my long ride or something. So we kind of had a lot of give and take, which was great. I mean, it really worked well.
Yeah, okay. So it's normal that if you push a bit hard, even if you're a professional athlete, you still feel bad if you have to go to lunch or not. That's like because I'm a pro triathlete, I always have high energy, and just to build that myth that I sometimes think.
No, I mean, you feel tired. I mean, I didn't want to go sometimes, but you have to make sacrifices in life for, family and stuff like that. And that's one thing I've always believed in with the sports, is that with anything you do in life, there's got to be time, whether it's business, whatever, there's got to be time for friends and family. I think, because they're also going through the journey with you.
Yeah, and I also feel like almost for the first time now, like I'm doing a triathlon alone. Like the next one I'm doing on the 28th.
Yeah, it's next week.
Yeah, and I really don't like to do it alone, because I always feel that whatever the journey, I always get emotional. Like I remember my first trip, I'm overly emotional, like on those swim, like the first swim, I really thought I was going to die so many times. I was like, I know, like my dad is waiting for me at the end. My mother,
Yeah.
there is no way I can like call the person. Like then I was on
Yeah.
my back and the sun was on me. And I was like, maybe I'm dying. I don't know. But I just feel like I couldn't. And so many times, whether it's my girlfriend or someone coming to see me, I always feel I have such strong emotions during the race because as I told you, I think my maybe gift is that I feel I can push really hard and go super deep.
Yeah.
I know I'm not the most gifted athlete, but then I know I'm going to dig deeper than maybe 90% of the other people in the race. And then when I'm so deep, it's those emotions to being super happy to see someone at the end, to push
Yeah.
with those extra things. That, yeah, to me, they have to be there. And now I'm going to try to do that for my own. And maybe I'm going to try to document it by filming it, which I'm not like you. I was very actually social in my early years, but I think I was lying to myself and I'm more introverted, I think, naturally. And so then I was still doing a lot of those, but now I'm more introverted. I still feel like maybe you relate, I think, with what you do with your charity that we can mention after. But this sharing to people and as an everyday person, even if I don't feel good in front of the camera with people, at least it makes me feel proud of. I know some people are going to watch it and feel better. And I think we're all who we are as like everyday people, as you say, man in the suit, sort of everyday person.
Yes. Yeah.
We have some individuality that some people might connect with. So I think that's really a great aim that you have.
Yeah. Thanks. That was also as you said, that definitely brings me a lot of joy is as if, me being fit and able to run a race in a decent time, isn't just an individual thing. It can actually maybe help, someone else or certainly hopefully help the charity that I'm doing it for.
Yeah, and definitely that's why I ask a lot of basic questions of the dots that I really love that you're sort of made it as a professional level and you're really good at it. And I can ask all those dots that I experience as a more amateur athlete that tries to be better. And I think it brings such a realness to what you experience and the doubts you experience and the doubts everyone experience in their time and seeing their time is very valuable. And so I really thank you for doing that. Like it's a real pleasure.
Yeah, sure. Sure. I mean, at the end of the day, we all are human, and kind of no matter how it looks on the outside, everyone's got their own issues going on, and it's very easy to forget that, I feel. And the same goes for the training. It's just like, one can be so focused on performance and stuff that you actually forget why you're doing it and the joys of what it brings. So I think, just with the journey of triathlon is also great and a life lesson just to, really take one step at a time and to focus on the enjoyment of why you're doing it.
Yeah, and also everyone struggles in their own way. Like we never know what people go through. And when I realized that even I always felt like, okay, I'm struggling with a lot of things I need to figure out. A lot of people, they seem so perfect and they seem that they all got everything sorted out. And shifting that, everyone is really struggling. Like it's human nature. We all struggle with different things. So always when someone is really good at something, they struggle with something you don't struggle with. And I love that perspective of we're all human, we all struggle. Even those perfect athletes that are so gifted. If you really dig, I think you're going to find some of their difficulties with some other stuff that for you is intuitive. And like for you,
absolutely.
you're probably with 15 rugby players. I will feel comfortable and you all feel natural. And we all have like different talents, and I think that's a great bringing humanity to those top athletes. I think can bring us a lot of confidence in ourselves, and that's where we need to give what's my relative gift or what relatively I think I'm good at, so I can bring that to some other people that don't have that natural ability. That what makes us special.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you want to maybe talk a bit more about your charity? So it's like the name is Man in a Suit, right?
Yes. So the campaign is called Man in the Suit, and I'm doing it for a charity called Jumping Kids, and they provide prosthetic limbs for underprivileged kids here in South Africa. and their main aim is obviously to provide the limbs, but then also take them through an education system, and hopefully get them a bursary or a scholarship to a decent school. And I've been working with them now for 2 years, and the whole aim of the man in the suit, the meaning behind the suit is that any kind of regular business, uh, like middle of the pack person can achieve something and make a difference in one's life. So I'm doing hopefully going to break the Guinness World Record for fastest time in a business suit. There is actually a standing record. It's by this American guy. It's 1:12:26. So
Your aim is 1:11.
yeah, so I would like to go. I'd like to go on 11. But we'll see how it goes. I mean, I just need to get there healthy and feel good, and I hope the rest. I'm going to hope the training I've been doing then does the rest.
Do you actually train in suits?
No, no. So I ran a 10K the other day in a suit, and yeah, that went pretty well. But I'll do some heat training, just kind of indoor on the treadmill with like a warm jacket on, because it does get pretty hot in the suit. But
The one you're wearing now, or
no, not this one. Definitely not this one. I actually like this one.
so you're more like a Eskimo.
Yeah. So I'll do a bit of heat training, but I mean, basically just trying to be consistent in the running.
Yeah, and so like I was actually just before I was looking at some statistics on, because I always wonder what actually that it's never fully random why people choose some charities. And did you actually experience some? Like, did you see someone that was missing a limb and then you were like, shit?
Yeah, I think it really resonated with me because of just being so performance driven for such a long time, and how hard it is to be competitive as an able-bodied athlete. I just take my hat off to anyone who's fighting not fighting, living with a disability, that they not only are, physically doing amazing things, but from a mental perspective, to firstly get over the disability you have, and then go and compete at a very high level. I find absolutely amazing. And I think it brought attention to what we spoke about, is that one has to be very happy with what they have, and there's a lot of positives to just being able to run. People would pretty much do anything to be able to run for a kilometer that are in a wheelchair. And it's things like that we able-bodied people do actually take for granted. So I think it helped me when I was in quite like dark places with training. I'd be like, well, you've got nothing to complain about, stop being a little bitch, as you said earlier. It's just like, man up and get it done. People would pretty much die for what you have. So it goes back to, everyone always wants like we think that people's lives are, bad. Our lives are like a struggle or whatever, but everyone's going through a lot, and it's just putting stuff into perspective.
Yeah, and it's really not to diminish, like, 'cause I think it can make you feel very guilty if you always feel like, for example, I'm eating well when some people aren't dying out of starvation or dehydration. I think it's very good to be like, okay, relatively, I'm still feeling very bad, but I think it can be very, like grateful to see. I sometimes have that when I run and I see someone in a wheelchair. I feel almost ashamed of myself to like show struggle, and show that I'm really struggling. And I know you struggle way more than me, and to pursue like a sporting endeavors, like with all the dots I already have. And it's like, I find it's crazy that they think that some people with disability find the time and the motivation to pursue physical like pursuit. And then I actually thought during the little break that I think what brings us to push those, it's not so much about ourselves in the longer perspective. Maybe first at the beginning, yes, but I think the joy and the happiness we find through transmitting that to some other people, and maybe I think inspiring to me, I think is the first motivator that I have to whatever I do. For example, my triathlon. I was so unprepared. And then it led to my dad like starting triathlon, and now he really loves it. And it's some stuff you can never expect, or even me having conversation with you now. Like
Yeah.
you don't even know what's going to happen. And I think just starting to put what you do out there can really be a huge motivator, not only the physical pursuit.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think the hardest thing is actually starting, that journey. Taking the first step is often it's the most daunting and the most, scary when you wanting to do something. But as you carry on doing it, it becomes obviously an easier task. I mean, a lot of people don't even start. So, it's like that's why I say have a goal and at least start the journey. It doesn't matter if you don't achieve your ultimate goal, but just starting the journey is a win in itself.
Yeah, like your first triathlon, like many of my races with my times, my trainings, I feel you get some sense of like pride if you so even if you fail, then you come back, you feel more proud, then you might inspire people that have the same experience, like me, for example. If I
Yeah.
struggle more with your first race in the swim, it actually inspires me that okay, it's okay if I'm bad now.
Yeah, and I mean, I think people are so scared to talk about their failures,
Yeah.
and then it gives us false perception that everyone's just achieving exactly what they want to achieve, and social media is a big part of that because on Instagram, people aren't posting about how they've failed 20 times. They're only posting about how they've, achieved what they want to achieve, basically. And, it can give us a perception of a very false look on the world, where everyone else is very, motivated and achieving what they want to achieve in life. But, pull back the curtain and there's a lot more there.
Yeah, so that's exactly what I try to do with like this podcast is to see where were your struggle, and also do you actually see that also in pros like Sam Laidlow or other? Can you actually see from them? You are in their like pack, but can you see also from the one that are the super top, like maybe top 20 ones? That do you see they have also those doubts and some days they feel terrible?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, everyone is human. There's no professional sports person in the world that hasn't gone through doubts or nerves or kind of insecurities with what they're doing, and I don't feel anyone's an exception to that. And I mean, look, I mean, Sam's performing at an extremely high level, and when you are at that high level, you are going to have days which are good and days which are bad. But yeah, I mean, that was also pretty refreshing to see is that, he, gets these great results, but obviously within training, he's just like any of us. He still might not be performing one day how he wants to perform, but then, he's very good at then isolating that and moving on to the next day where he might have an absolutely fantastic session. So I think, you also need a short-term memory. You can celebrate, when you've had a good victory, but then don't let that linger too long. Just as much as if you've had a terrible race, feel weak about it for like 2 days, but then move on from it.
Yeah, I think Federer, like Roger Federer,
Yeah.
exactly that. But I think his overall career point win rate was like 51% or something
Yeah.
like that. So then he was like, okay, like what makes me very good at the end is that okay, I know I'm going to win some, lose some. There's a player that also like Alexi, is it Alex his name? Not sure. Don't know who won the. Yeah, he was also saying something like that. Yeah, like you have there's just so much you can do and so much you can win, lose, and it doesn't matter so much like your performance, and at least don't transpire it with, that's what he was saying, like don't transpire it physically of how you feel, because that's only going to deteriorate how you feel. Nadal was also saying the same, that I'm never going to now anymore do a very bad defeated phase because I know it's only going to make me feel worse. So regardless of I win, I lose, that's try to shift my mind to I'm going to let
and people can have all the talent in the world, be so physically gifted, but mentally, if they're not there, it's not going to take them very far in a professional capacity. Just because if you have these constant doubts and stuff, you're never going to perform to the best of your ability.
Yeah, or not a deeper meaning that then it won't really motivate you to eat better, sleep better, make sure it works with your surroundings and so on. You can be so gifted. I mean, there's a limit to the work you have to put in, especially the highest level. If you.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
So no, and thank you so much for your time. Do you want to maybe quickly tell where can we find you and how can we support maybe the charity?
Yeah, sure. So I have an Instagram handle. It's just at man in the suit, and there on in my bio there's a link there that's got a link to my donations page, and it's very simple. You just click on the link, and if you want to make a donation, that's always fantastic. It doesn't matter if it's small amounts. Every little bit helps. And then yeah, go check out their page. It's called Jumping Kids. You just type that into Google and they're the first ones to pop up. And yeah, they're really doing some awesome work. So any kind of awareness and support is greatly appreciated for them.
And also for you, like, where can we find you as a coach?
So I'm on the Laidlow at Laidlow.com page. So just on their website, you can inquire about me. On that page is a link. Also under James McCallum, that's my Instagram handle. And there is a link also to the Laidlow page, where if you want to, feel free to drop me a message and we can get in touch.
Yeah, just to let people know, like, I have you as a coach only for like 19 days now. And to me, it's really been helpful. And I really can probably just feel, because I never had really real coaches, but I think it's like in psychotherapy, you can really, it's a big leap, but you can really tell there's a difference between a really good coach and someone that's like is doing their best, but they don't have the same insights over you. And I think with your experience and who you are, I'd really like benefit from that tremendously.
Great. So thanks so much. Yeah, just don't speak too soon.
No, now the real watch is trying to come. And my first race with you as a coach with you there.
Yeah, it's exciting next week.
Yeah. So thank you so much. I hope you have a great day.
Yeah, thanks, everyone. Thanks so much for your time and having me on your podcast. Appreciate it.